My name is Chris James, and when I'm not on shift, these are some of the things that I do. Today, we're doing an arrow build. So what I'm going to show you is the steps I take to build my hunting arrows. Once again this year, I'm using the Black Eagle Rampage and the 250 spine, .003 straightness. When they're shipped to you, most arrows are 32 inches carbon to carbon. I cut mine down to 28 inches. What I do is I've already spun all my arrows. When I get them, I use this Pine Ridge Archery arrow spinner. Spins pretty good with very little effort. So I'll take it, spin it, check where I think the wobble stops, and then I mark it, check the other side, the knock in, mark it. I did that, had them cut, brought them to my local archery shop. I don't have an arrow saw yet, but I believe for next year's build I will be getting one, because there were 3, maybe 4 arrows that I cut that still have a little bit of wobble in, and I could have, with the 4 inches I had to play with, some I did 2 inches and 2 inches, some I did 3 and 1. So with that being said, it's more beneficial, so I guess I just need to bite the bullet and go buy one, and more beneficial to where you cut an inch off or 2 inches, re-spin it, and if it still has a wobble, cut it to where if you've got 4 inches like I did to play with, you know, if I cut 4 inches off, I could have kept cutting until that wobble was gone, and then just took a little nip off the end. So maybe a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch off the end to true it or square it up. And then, so those 3, maybe 4 arrows that still had a little wobble in, I could have possibly cut that out. So I think next year I'm going to get my own arrow saw, but I didn't, so we're going to move on. The dozen arrows that I had cut and I respun, about 9 of them are all spinning now to almost a .001 straightness. So for budget reasons, you buy the .003, put a little bit of work in like I'm doing here, and you get a .001 straightness arrow. So what I did was I weighed all the arrows after I cut them. I set them from the heaviest to lightest, and then I weighed the outsert. Black Eagle has a 51 grain outsert is what they advertise. I weighed all of them. 8 of them were 53 grains. And I like these because you can play with the front and center. They have screw-in weights that you can add to it once you get their long Allen head tool, or you can put them in if you know exactly what weight you want. Use a regular Allen screw, put it in there, secure it, maybe some blue Loctite so you know it's not going to go anywhere. Glue your outsert and you're good to go. But if you don't know, you have the opportunity to buy the screw-in weights. They have a tool, a long Allen tool that goes from the knock end, threads down to the outsert. You screw it in, and you can play around with front and center if that's what you want to do. I did play with it, so I'm adding 20 grains to the outsert system. So these were 53 plus 20, and then my broadhead's 100 grains. So that'll be the weight I'm using for my arrow build. So I did overspine just a little bit so you can play with front and center. So if you have too stiff of a spine, you can add more point weight and that will weaken the spine. So arrows have been cut. I need to true the arrow. So what I do is I take a silver Sharpie for contrast, right? And what I do, and I'll show you here, is I put a little silver mark here. Alright, so you can take a look. So now, when you go to true it, there's several of them out there. What I use is the G5 one. It works pretty well for me. Set it in the grooves. One hand down, the other hand applying the pressure and as you spin. So I've already done this to all dozen arrows. So then spin it all. So as you can see, let me get my glasses because I can't see that close anymore. Alright, let me take a look. Alright, so yeah, like I said, I've already done all the knock end and the tip end already, but if you spin it, when you first get them cut, they're all going to be off. So when you mark it and you spin it, you might get a little bit of silver still on there. If you still see silver, then you need to go back and true it some more. And then when you're done doing that, you take a Q-tip, right, and you run a dry Q-tip first, get what little carbon's left in there, and then I've already done this already, so I got some denatured alcohol from the hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, everywhere sells it. You dip the Q-tip into it, and I also did the dry end for the knock-in. I'm not gluing that one in. Put the denatured alcohol or acetone and clean the rest of it off. Another thing that I've done too with all the outserts is I've taken a paper towel with the denatured alcohol and I've cleaned all any residue that might be on these outserts. So I've done all dozen outserts, and so when you do that, put your outsert in, and now you, it's alright, not glued, I didn't glue it yet. Get your arrow spinner again, right? So now you got your outserts. You've got a trued end, you know it's perfect because of the steps you just took to do it. You spin it, outsert, say the outsert's a little wonky and you need to see, get it truer, you just spin it a little bit. Give it a good spin. And you do that until it is acceptable to you. Another thing you can do for more visual aid is put your broadhead in there, screw that in, spin it, and watch your broadhead. So it is a little tougher to see a flat end wobble. But with that being said, I've got all mine spun and aligned, and then when you do that here, what I do is I take a black Sharpie, and see if you can see right there. You see the black Sharpie, you mark the outsert and the arrow. So now you do that to all dozen of your arrows, set that aside, and then when you go to glue them in, then all you gotta do is once you spin it. So this year I'm using a 2-part epoxy. I'll show you. So I got this on Amazon. It's a Brampton Golf Club Epoxy Repair Club Kit. It's a 15-minute playtime, so you get 15 minutes to mess around with it. So there's no rush like you have with CA glue that might set in 30 seconds. So 2-part epoxy, it's a 1-to-1 mixture. I've already done the one for my aero build. You mix it, this stuff is hard as a rock, and it's been 15 minutes. You mix it on a piece of cardboard with a toothpick. When you mix it, so since I've already done it, this is dry. You want to be careful that the threads on the outsert, you don't get any epoxy in there, because if you want to play with your weight system, that way you're able to do it. And you just lightly roll it in there, and then when you take it, and remember we've already marked it, so there's no urgency to see where you've marked it before or miss your mark. And when you sit it in there and you rotate as you push it all the way in, all right? And now when it's flush, then you find your mark. When you find your mark, so this one's not glued in, but when you find your mark, you set it right back there, set it, forget it. One thing I will say, especially when you're using epoxy, and unfortunately I learned from experience, don't put your knock ends in. All right, what happens is with the epoxy, when you're pushing it in, you're creating air, and you're creating air pressure inside your arrow. And so you think like CA glue sets in 30 seconds, some of them, most of them do. Some can be a couple minutes. With this epoxy, it's a 15-minute playtime, 30-minute cure, the one that I just got. And what happens sometimes is, it's happened to me before, it's pushed the knockout or the insert out a little bit. So when I came back to look at them, and the one in particular was a 24-hour, when I came back and didn't realize it, it did that. So now the arrow, you know, it was shot. I couldn't use it. You know, we pay good money for our arrows. They give me anywhere from $10 to $15 an arrow, so that would be a big oops. So don't do what I did. Make sure you leave your knock end out. All right, we'll set that aside. So this is the one I've already glued. I've used that epoxy that I showed you. It's already dried here. And you can see my mark. The mark there, it's lined up. I can't even spin this. This thing, it's in there. And so this epoxy, it says you can go hit a golf ball after you repaired your golf club in 30 minutes. So this is not going anywhere. And I did leave my knock end out, or my knock out of my end there. So now we're getting ready to start fletching some arrows. So I've already spun it. Once again, we marked it. This one is spinning perfect. So we don't need that one anymore. Also, when you have your jig, if you don't know, so the fletching jig I have is a Bitzenberger, and I use a right helical vane. When you set it up, it only has a mark here in the center that tells you in line. It doesn't tell you 1, 2, 3 degree offset. So that was I was a little bummed about that. But with that being said, Nock On Archery has an arrow wrap pad, and if you look down on the bottom there, you can see that they put on there a 1, 2, 3 degree offset. So it kind of gives you a visual aid in the event you don't know what degree you want. So this was my first pad that I got, and then my wife and kids got me this bigger workstation pad to use. So if you got a big work table, this is perfect. If you don't have much to work on, say you got one of those card tables that you would use to watch TV, maybe eat dinner, this is perfect for it. So that being said, also too, I use his arrow wraps. A lot of companies out there have pretty much the same material. I like to support Nock On Archery. He does a lot of good with his YouTube videos and showing archers on how to become better at being a better archer. So I'm using these arrow wraps. The vanes I'm using are from AAE. These are the Max Stealth vanes. They are a 2.7 inch vane, and they say they weigh 9.2 grains per vane. So what I do with my outserts is I also weigh my vanes. This box here did weigh out at 9.2 on my October Mountain Products scale here. So I've used this one for a couple of years. Got a nice little arrow rest. There's a lot of them out there. I've used that one. It weighs true. And it's pretty inexpensive on Amazon. Unfortunately, I had to get it online because there's nobody here locally sells them. So these did weigh out at 9.2 grains. This box here weighed at 9.4. So it's only off by 0.2, but what I'll do is I've already weighed my arrows after I glue the insert, because the epoxy is going to add a little bit more point weight to it, is I'll re-weigh all of my arrows out. The heaviest arrow is going to start with a 9.2. The lightest one is going to get the 9.4. This was the one I glued was one of the heavier ones, so we're going to use the 9.2 grain vanes for that. Alright, so we don't need any markers here. I've seen some comments online, not so much with the products that I'm using, but people having trouble with their vanes ripping off, whether they've passed through a deer, an animal, hog, and their vanes have ripped off. Once again, I use the Nock On Max Bond vane glue. This pairs really well with the Max Stealth or the AAE archery vanes. I also use the Max Weld, which is an acetone. Not sure if it's acetone like that you can get in a bottle like this, like the denatured alcohol. But with that being said, it's easy. It's got a nice little felt on it. So what I do is I'll take my, and I'm doing a 3 fletch. So I'll take my 3 vanes there. Set this aside here. Alright. And the way I glue them on, and like I said, I'm not reinventing the wheel. This is just stuff that I've seen from other arrow builds that I've picked apart here and there. I like what that guy did or girl, and compiled it all together. And this is what, like I said, this is what I've come up with. This Max Bond glue that Nock On Archery sells is an AAE glue, and it is phenomenal. With this process that I do, I've yet to have, even passing through a block and or an animal, the vanes still stay intact. So I use a right helical. It's about a 3 degree offset, and I'll show you when I'm done here. So I use a right helical, and what I've done is I've marked my vanes, and the measurement that I'm using is I've actually knocked my arrow and drew my bow back, and I had my family take a picture. And when you draw it back, when you're back here, you don't want your vanes, if you have a beard, touching your beard, your mouth. So I have it set to where it is about, well, you'll see. It's set forward far enough to where it's not touching my face when I'm at full draw. So, all right, so set that aside here, and I'll show you how I put my wrap on. The wrap, running a wrap will also, unfortunately, if you're having a problem, if you want your arrow to be stiffer, this will help with that. But also, for a reaction, there's a reaction, right? So adding this wrap to the back, if you're a big front of center guy or girl, this will change your front of center. Not by much. If you go online, you can find some archery arrow scale math equations that you input your grains. Jeez, oh man. And put in your numbers, and it'll give you a ballpark of what front of center you're using. I mess around by using the gold tip arrow scale, and so I'll be around with my wrap on 11.5%. So I've got my arrow, making sure it's not the one that I didn't glue yet, and you stick it here and you match up, and when you do it, you want to push the arrow towards the wrap, and when you see the whole wrap move evenly, you take it and you push and roll a couple times, and boom, now you got a pretty looking arrow so far. Alright, so I'm doing a 3 flesh, so you set it at the 120 degree. Set that in there for a second here. And what I do is I'll put two veins in my clip here, and then I'll use the acetone pen, give it a little couple bumps, and you just take it, and this cleans the backside or the adhesion side of your knock, or correction, your vein. So I'll do those two there, drop that, and then the third one I'm going to set already, and I'll show you where I set it at. Alright, don't push too hard and it goes everywhere. Shop towel, rag. Luckily it dries fairly fast, so it's not going to hurt you. Just don't put them in your mouth. Alright, so you can see there it's got measurements on the clips, and you can see, after, like I said, I've taken pictures of my arrows nocked of where I want my vein set. Alright, another good thing too about this glue, it's got a little pin on the inside. I don't know if you can see that there. Can you see it there, camera guy? No, you can't see it. How about now? You see that little pin right there? Yeah. Alright, that was my camera guy. I store it like that, and make sure you store it in a cool place. It'll last you a while, at least angled up, and that way when I take it out, it's good to go. Alright, so one thing I've learned is in the past I've glued the whole vein, and then we smush it on here and the glue just goes everywhere. I've done it now to where 3 drops is all you need. So you can start at the front, start at the back, drop in the back end, the middle, and the front. Alright, so you can see that. 3 drops. And then all I do is just take my bottle and I just smush it along and smear it evenly. Alright. Alright, so now my glue is even across the whole vein. Take it, put the butt in first, magnetic part. Push it on. Give it a second. About 30 seconds, you can take the clip off, rotate it, and you wipe, use a little rag. I got an old shirt here that I use. and unfortunately I oopsed on my arrow wrap. Put it on backwards. So, but either way, alright, about 30 seconds. So what I do is grab the clip and I rotate it left, and then I pull the clip out so it doesn't mess with the arrow. Alright, very little. Don't see any smushing out there. And I reset it again. And 3 more drops. Alright. So a little bit about myself. I'm a lieutenant paramedic for the fire department. Hence our YouTube channel name, Not on Shift. Alright. I'm an avid hunter, boater / fisherman, father, husband, all that good stuff. Alright, so now I put it on here, set it down, push it. Alright, set that there. So 1, 2, and 3. So let's see if I can get it closer this time. So that's all I got. See, 3 little drops. That's all you need. And I just start from the top, smear it up, spread it out evenly. You don't need much. Little goes a long way here. So these little bottles that are not even a full fluid ounce. Yeah, 0.7 fluid ounces. This has already done at least 2 dozen arrows. So as long as you keep it in a cool, dry place, it'll last you a while. Alright, so the third one. There you go. When you're doing this, you want to make sure the arrow and nock are set in all the way down there. Alright, so clear that off there. So we're not done with the glue yet, even though the veins are on there. So one of the things I do with the glue is I tip the edges of the veins. And once again, just stuff I've seen on YouTube of other arrow builds, and once again reiterating, taking little pieces here, little pieces there, and I've compiled them, built arrows, and I've been doing this now for 4 years, and everything's worked out great. Except this go around with my arrow wrap. That in there goes on the bottom. I did an oops, and I put it up top, so we're not going for style points here. Alright. So that one's almost done. Give it a second here. Should be good. So now what I'll do here is I'll grab it, especially with this Bitzenberger. I can't speak for any other fletching jigs. I'll pinch it and I'll rotate it to the left a hair. You don't want to go too far. And then I'll go back. Hear that click? There. And then I'll take it out. Alright. Another thing you can do, if you do have a little bit of overflow glue, take it, wipe it out. That one's good there. That one's good there. Alright. So before you go any farther, what I'll do is I'll flick it. Flick the veins down. If it wasn't adhered all the way down, it would come off your arrow. So all of those are set. So there's the helical that I do. And it's about, like I said, I think it's about a 3 degree with the Bitzenberger. You don't know. But what I do know is these, doing the right helical, gets this arrow spinning off your bowstring quick. Alright, so here we'll get to, we're almost done gluing and almost done with this arrow. So what I'll do is I'm tipping it. So I'll take the glue and I'll put a little dab right on the front. I don't know if you can see it. Right there in front. And I'll do that to all 3, front and back. back maybe not so as important, but you don't need much because when this dries, there's 3. It's usually the front. The back, where I've seen come in play, is when you shoot it into your target and it's passed through your target and you push it back out. That's where the back comes into play. So I've tipped all 3, and you can see the vanes. It's crucial to keep your vanes all on the same line. All right, you see the tip there? And that's it. That's my arrow build. So I hope you guys like it. Like I said, it's worked for me. I mean, I've been shooting bows now for almost, let's say, 15 years. And I've been taking it to the next level and doing my own arrow builds. I do my own bow tuning, and it helps you become a better archer. So I've taken, in reference to John Dudley and Nock On Archery, his videos that he has, you take target archery and bring it into a hunting scenario. It just makes you an all-around better archer, and gives you more confidence instead of waiting till the last second to start shooting. If you shoot all year, you know, love archery, and hope you guys liked the video. Like I said, if you couldn't tell, it's our first one, so I appreciate you guys watching. Hit the like button. Couldn't tell you where it's at, but leave a comment, and my camera guy said it's down on the bottom, somewhere down here. If you like it, leave a comment. I'll read them, get back to you. And thanks again for watching, and be safe and have fun.